Hey, what's good, everybody? This is Cam Green. This is Cam's Green Light. Say no more, say less. The brand. I got a special guest with me here today. Man, he doesn't really need an introduction, but we're going to go ahead and give him an introduction, man. So go ahead, sir, and let these people know who you are.
Man, so I'm King Jay Barnett, man, author, speaker, mentor. I'll be a therapist in about a year.
Yes, sir.
And former pro football player. Yeah, I'm just blessed, man, to be on your show tonight, and just humble to even be a guest. And thank you for having me on. I'm not really big on introductions, man. I'm not big on titles and things like that.
Yeah.
But I know we need them to identify who we are. But I'm just blessed, man, just to be a vessel in this era and just during this time. And so I think it's a very great opportunity that God has given me to be a vessel amongst this generation. So it's been good.
Yes, sir. And so, man, it's a blessing to have you on the show as well, man. I definitely been watching you from afar, seeing you on the gram and you being, taking a few trips up to PV. I've watched some clips, man, and people, man, like, man, Jay Barnett, that's what y'all need to know about Jay Barnett. So I'm like, okay, let me check into him, man. And so, man, you're a great brother, man, with a great message. And so I definitely had to put you on the show as well. And, we as speakers, man, we as vessels, and God called us to, pour into people and give them life with our words. And, man, and that's something like what Solomon was. That's something like what, Paul the Apostle was. So it's a blessing to be in this position, man. So we're going to get into the topic.
Yeah,
man.
all right.
Yes, sir. So the topic tonight, I'm just gonna say what it is, man. So it's toxic relationships.
Topic tonight is toxic relationship,
and with beneficial relationships as well. And so we're gonna give it about 30 to 40 minutes. We're gonna have a chop up a genuine discussion.
All right.
On what that mean, man, with toxic relationships. So what can you give us on those things? Like what how do we know?
Well, I think when you're looking at a toxic relationship, you're looking at a relationship that is unhealthy, for one.
Absolutely.
You're looking at a relationship that does more tearing down than building up. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're looking at the toxicity of any situation, you're always looking at not so much of the dynamic of the relationship, but you're looking at the individuals that are involved. Mm-hmm. Because toxic people make the relationship toxic. Yeah. No relationship is toxic on its own. And so for one, I always tell people, just not just from a therapist standpoint, but give attention to the behavior patterns of people. Some people just have toxic behaviors, mm-hmm. and toxic behaviors can eventually contaminate a relationship, and you not even know that it's toxic. Right. But because so many times we're involved in things that we're so deep into it that it's hard for us to see out of it. Mm-hmm. And so what I encourage people is that when you are able to identify behavior patterns, you're able to identify certain treatment, whether it's certain words or how you guys are interacting with one another. If it's unhealthy to your emotions, unhealthy to your mental state, and most definitely if it's unhealthy to your spiritual to the spiritual realm of who you are, mm-hmm. You're in a toxic relationship. So many times people think toxic is just somebody being bad, an overall bad person. But sometimes just toxic can be just the individual have not grown to a level of understanding of who you are, mm-hmm. and they become toxic because they cannot embrace all of you. Mm. And so that within itself can become toxic, because if you're not being built in the relationship, and relationships has to have reciprocation to where you give, I give. Right. You know what I mean? And so and that's from my perspective. But when you are able to identify what is toxic to you, because what's toxic to you in one relationship may not be toxic in another relationship, depending on the individuals. Yeah,
and, it's funny because you see in a lot of relationships, or it could be friendships, but, boyfriend and girlfriend scenarios, or whatever, husband and wife scenarios, family member scenarios, people that they have bad attitudes, and then they go off on you in this, and they talk to you in a manner, and it's really, really harsh, but their excuse for it, or the way of them letting you know, like, this is the reason why I'm talking like this, they normally say this is their reason. They're like, well, this is how I am. this is how I talk. That's just how I talk. Like either you put up with it or you just move around from me. But this is how I'm gonna talk, and this is normally how I'm acting. And it's like, hold on, wait a minute. This is very unhealthy. This is very unhealthy. Like the way the way you're saying these things, the tone that you're saying these things. Like we have to take heed to that. And it's like, hold on, like that's very detrimental to people's health, their mental health, and all of those things. You might not physically abuse me, but your verbal abuse is something that's powerful. And it's like, man, what's going on? And people, their excuse is, this is how I talk.
And many times, and here's what I would say from the position, I've been in school 3 years getting my master's to become a therapist.
Shout outs to that, man.
And so I finished at the end of 2019.
Yes, sir.
Here's what I would say is that many times what we do is I don't think we spend enough time learning the history of individuals. And what I mean about the history is understanding the family dynamic and the system that shaped them and that mold them to be who they are. Because many times how an individual communicate with you is attached to either their family system, their environment, or previous relationships or treatment. So what happened is they've developed this behavior pattern and they've developed either a coping mechanism that they utilize in certain situations and certain dynamics of relationships. So what happened is that you would treat everybody the same as if you were treated in the last relationship.
Yeah.
So for me, if I'm a firm person and I'm very absolute, and if you've experienced some type of abuse verbally, you can take my directness as being offensive or abusive to you. But to understand that, okay, this individual came from a very verbally abusive relationship. And so I think what happened is everybody wants to stay the same. But you can't grow
if you stay the same.
You know what I'm saying? By staying the same. But then too, and I tell people this, is like, if you're not ready to grow, you can't be involved in any relationship.
Absolutely.
Because relationships are going to always challenge you in the area that you grow. And so, and then here's what'll happen. If you're dating somebody who's strong in their thinking, in their spiritual walk, and just who they are, sometime that comes off a bit as if, you know what I'm saying?
It might be a threat.
It's a threat to people who have not identified with who they are.
Yeah.
So they would interpret who you are, your confidence, as being, you know what I'm saying, toxic. So we have to be careful, like, what do you label as toxic? And what I tell my young girls in my program is that you determine how somebody feel about you through the treatment and not how they make you feel. Because feelings are generated by chemicals, so they change.
Yeah.
And so when I'm determined how I'm loved, I determine it by how you treat me. What is the behavior? Not by what you feel, not by what you say to me. So what's important is that when we learn where people come from, who made these people, it teaches us how to deal with them. Because the moment I get your history and your past, now it has to sort of redirect, or should I say, it should alter how I handle you, because it's hard, and especially people who come from a very abusive situation. Their family was abusive, or they came, or they saw abuse. It's hard for a lot of people to accept love, but this is the same thing that they desire, because if you don't really know what that means, you really don't know what it looks like.
Right.
So you kind of interpret everything as being the same, which is dangerous, because what'll happen is that you'll be reading good text with bad eyes.
Yeah. Hey, man. You got to run that big. Good text with bad eyes. Dang, man. That's deep. So, you know, when I was younger, and I definitely can relate to you, and I definitely can attest to what you're saying. So when I was younger, I was really quiet as a child, but I was very observant. I wasn't really a shy child, but I was just quiet and reserved into myself because I was observant of the people around me. And so what it did for me, it helped me get an idea of who you were. So when I got to talking, I knew how to deal with you based off of the type of observance that I did on you, and that's kind of like what in a sense what you were saying, man.
Right.
You know, people come from different backgrounds, and we don't necessarily understand their backgrounds or understand how they play or understand how they talk or how they love. Some people are very aggressive with their love. Some people, you know, say like some hardcore words, but that's just how they express their love, and it's
Right.
like, don't get offended. But I love hard, but I love really, really hard.
Right.
Yeah.
And it goes back to understanding, like, when you come into my office and as a therapist, it's like, one of the things is that we are able to determine certain factors, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, or even psychological. It all goes back to your childhood. Mm-hmm. What, you know, how was love exhibited in your childhood?
Right.
You know what I mean? Was your parents loving? It's like, for me, I'll be honest and transparent for me. Like, my mom told us she loved us every day. So it's not difficult for me to express how I feel about a woman, and tell her that I love her and I care for her, because my mom was very affectionate. Now, my father wasn't. My father was not affectionate. Mm-hmm. I never saw my father grab my mom's hand. I never saw my dad like hug on my mom and play with her. I never saw that. Yeah. But my mom was very affectionate, and by me seeing that from her, it allowed me to I'm a very affectionate man. Like, right. I'm not bothered by PDA. I'm cool with that. I'm not, like, it doesn't make me feel any type of way. And for myself, if I'm with somebody, I think for me, I don't have an issue with showing my lady or my girl attention in front of other women, because I never saw that with my dad. So to know me is to know that, man, I'm a very affectionate man. Now, the challenge is if you're dating a woman that doesn't like affection, because maybe something happened in her childhood that sort of didn't give her a warped thinking, but just kind of tainted her picture a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so it goes back to what you're saying, is that what social media has done is that it's presented this virtual reality and virtual perception, that you see a lot of people who present pictures. So they present images, but doesn't necessarily mean this is who they are.
Yeah, it's not realistic.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like you present an image of acceptance of love. You're looking for love, but can you really handle love if love showed up on your door? Because to really handle love, because if you never received it, it's hard to receive it from somebody who's freely giving it, because you're always thinking that they're going to take it away from you. Because especially if you've been abandoned in a lot of situations. So when you look at relationships, man, whether it's toxic or a healthy relationship, it all comes back to, and I tell, you know, even the young people that I mentor, man, always ask questions on where he or she came from. Because what you believe to be true and what you experience to be real in your life is attached to relationships, language, and environment. Those three factors shape our perspectives. So when you're looking at somebody who's very aggressive with their nature of love, let's take for an example, like if you dated, you know, I've dated, you know, a young lady from the East Coast. Yeah. Very aggressive. But not, it's not in a bad way.
But that's just their culture.
Exactly. That's just the nature of it. And then, too, it's like you date somebody who's a Southern. I'm born and raised in Mississippi. Yeah. So it's like I'm a Southern gentleman.
Hospitality.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to open up the door. You know, I say yes, ma'am, to my sisters. Yeah. And so it's like, it's not, you know, a woman like, oh, you say yes, ma'am, to me? And I'm like, no, I'm not calling you old, but just the culture that I was shaped in just reared me like that. So to really know me and to know my culture, and one of the things that I challenge a lot of therapists is that the only way that you can connect to all of your clients is to culturally be equipped with what shaped them and how they move and operate.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
so, and that gives you an understanding to where you're not going to approach everybody the same. And even this, and like I tell people, even when you're connecting with people who look just like you, I can't have a black man come into my office for therapy and I'm just like, yo, what up? What up, son? What's good, nigga? You know what I'm saying? Because just because we look alike does not mean that we've had the same experiences.
Absolutely.
So, you know, we have to we have to move beyond our inhibitions and even move away from our assumptions. Because we may look alike, but we've had totally two different experiences. Because if you grew up in A-Leaf or you grew up in Bel Air, still in Houston, two different experiences.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? Yes, and so it's just really being aware, man. And so I think that's what I really work toward getting young people to understand. Just being aware of just people, situations, certain dynamics, man, so you can be effective when you are connecting with people, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. My history teacher back in high school said, man, he said where you live affects how you live. You know,
Yeah,
and
it does.
that's a total.
It
I just like
does.
that's a true statement right there, because based on where you from and where the environment you come from, just like
Yeah.
you said, you dated somebody on the East Coast and they had a different mentality or a different type of slang or just the way they exemplify their love. It's just
Right.
it's totally the vibe is different, but they don't mean to come off disrespectful. Like I know I had some friends from the Midwest. In my eyes, me being a Southerner, I'm like, dang, y'all rude. Like, y'all really rude.
Yeah, but they not rude in their
But
eyes.
in their eyes, like, bro, we talk like this on the norm. Like, if you sensitive if you can't keep up with this. It's like, dang, okay.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to have that tougher skin and be like, oh, okay, well, they're not from here. So you have to be mindful of those type of things. And
Well,
yeah.
and then too is like I tell people is like, man, you gotta. I heard this quote, never forgot it. Is like, you have to stop harassing the world with your perspective.
Okay.
Like you have to stop harassing the world with your perspective. And I think when people ask me like, Jay, how do you connect with white kids? How do you connect with black kids? How do you connect with girls? How did you write a book for girls, Letter to a Young Queen? I basically took myself and I was mentoring 30 girls over here at Provision.
Okay.
Right here off of Cullen.
Okay.
So they were the first school to give me a contract for my girls program. And I wrote the curriculum like 5 years ago. And the principal and the superintendent was both female. And they was like, yo.
They need that. Yeah.
They was like, we stepping out on a limb to give you an opportunity to work with these girls. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this whole area right here is like, you know what I'm saying, of course, the average household doesn't have a male figure in it, or less alone have seen a positive image of what a man represent. Not a perfect man, but just what a man represent. Mm-hmm. And so when they gave me that opportunity and they gave me a semester contract to work with these girls, I mean, we did everything from peel back the layers from these girls' emotional, from the trauma that they experienced. We did a balloon releasing their ceremony. We took these girls out to dinner. We had them learn etiquette. And so when somebody asked me, how did you write that book? What I did was I took my eyes off and I put on how they see the world through their eyes. Mm-hmm. And so many times is that we're trying to show people their world with our eyes instead of seeing their world with their eyes. Mm-hmm. So, which is really what empathy is, right? Versus sympathy.
Yeah.
Sympathy is just kind of like, I feel for you, and empathy is that I feel with you. And so what I had to do was gain an understanding when we look at certain behaviors and certain triggers from our teens, from our kids. I never go to what a child is doing. I always go to why are they doing that?
Absolutely.
Because behind every behavior, there's an issue that has manifested the behavior. Mm-hmm. So once you understand the issue that created the behavior, now you better understand how to connect with that individual. So when I realized that all of these girls were good because they brought in a girls program that didn't connect with them. And so I realized, I said, okay, here's how I'm going to connect with them. All they wanted was someone to accept them for who they are and where they were and not have an expectation of them, because they don't have an expectation for themselves because their parents didn't have an expectation for them. Mm-hmm. So before I can even get them to understand how to see themselves, I have to build their self-worth.
Right.
And once you build people's self-worth, you can insert whatever you have. And so I was able to be successful with the book because what I realized is that these girls, it's kind of like when dudes said, "Well, women are emotional." It's like, how do you still live and say women are emotional? Yeah. That's the dynamic of how women function.
Yeah.
What I realized is that I encourage them. You are supposed to be emotional because that's your makeup. But what I want you to do is learn how to manage your emotions.
Absolutely.
And so once I was able to help them to understand that, right, they were able to see outside of the situations, because anytime that you're involved in your feelings and your emotions, they're valid. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know how to work outside of them, you'll always be controlled by them.
Yeah.
And that's how we were able to work with these girls to step in their world and be able to provide a program and create a piece of literature that would be effective. And I think that's the issue that we're having right now, is that a lot of people are doing a lot of things, but how many people are effective? It's like people like, well, I've had my program for 20 years. Like, I don't care how long you had it. Yeah. How effective are you in it?
Yeah.
Because just because you communicate doesn't mean that you connect.
Yeah.
Because if you're not connecting with people, you're not effectively communicating. And you'd be surprised at people who talk just to say they have a conversation. You know what I mean? So
we can call out a lot of that stuff. We can hold a lot of people accountable with that statement right there, man.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna get into all of that.
Yeah.
Hey, but I want to touch back on something that you said earlier. You said that in your household, you never watched your father be affectionate, but your mother was really affectionate, and you said that you don't have problems with like PDA and all of those type of things.
Yeah.
And but you know, I'll give it from a different perspective. Like for me, it was real difficult showing that type of public affection or just affection in general, because I didn't see it at all. I came from a single parent household, and so my mother, she was loving in a sense, but my mom, I feel like she didn't have that type of that real tight compassion. And it's like, okay, as a woman, you normally see women just real compassionate and all of these things and just want to hug on you and love on you. And my mom, we would have, give hugs from time to time, and she would kiss us on the cheek and let us know that she loved us. And it was those times, that I've seen. But when it came to my father, even though that, like I said, I was in a single parent household, my father wasn't really affectionate, and he remarried, and now he's married now, and I still like really just don't see that. And so for me, it was really awkward dealing with relationships and being affectionate. And I felt like I had to hide who I was in a sense, and I had to do my younger self. I had to really evaluate that, because when I was trying to date a young lady, my thing was like, man, in a closed setting, I can be all of who I really want to be.
Oh yeah, that's every man though.
But you know what I'm saying? I want to be all of who I want to be. But in that public setting, it's like, I don't really want to hold hands. I ain't really with you rubbing against my arm like that. And it's just like, I don't really know how to feel about it. And it's not like I don't like you, but I really just don't know how to feel about that situation, because it's just always been awkward. I have to warm up to that and let me do that.
It's layers for men. And I'll say this to the women who are listening, right?
Let them know.
It's very difficult for men to be vulnerable and open in their emotions, and I'll say this is the reason why. For men, our emotion is our most prized possession.
Yeah.
So when we become open and when we become vulnerable with you, we're basically saying, I'm trusting you with this treasure. It's no different than when a woman is trusting a man with her body.
Yeah,
and so they have so we have layers to our emotion, because for us, our emotions is attached to our ego, because the moment that a man publicly says, I love you, publicly grabs your hand, basically what he's saying is like, yo, I'm just putting it all on the line.
I'm all in.
He's all in.
Yeah.
And when we're all in, and here's why, ladies, we're not as resilient as you are in our emotions. We're not as resilient as women are in their emotions. So it's very difficult for us to process and move through our emotions when we get hurt. That's why when men get hurt, it takes us longer to recover than it do for women. And many of us, and it's just from the culture that we have been shaped and reared in, is that we have not properly learned how to process. So what'll happen is we develop unhealthy coping mechanisms. And then what you'll see is that you'll have some men that they can get behind closed doors, like you said, they can be loving, they can be open, they can be grabbing. You know what I'm saying? And somebody says men move on fast. Men may move on fast, but emotionally, it's hard for them to move on fast.
Physically, you can.
Yeah, physically, a man can move on fast, but emotionally, it's difficult for him to move on. Yeah. Because what happened is that how we replay our emotional tape is that she did this, now all of y'all are the same. So, you know what I mean? So it's very difficult. And so what I had to learn is that what my mother would tell me is like, I watch. Because for me, I never saw my father show my mother as if I never saw him validate her in public, right, around other women. And so what I realized, and I'm observing this, I'm like 11, 12 years old, and I'm like, man, Pops ain't grabbing her hand. He ain't really, you know what I'm saying? He ain't showing other women that this is my wife, this is my girl.
Yeah.
And I saw how my mother responded to that emotionally and what it did to her psychologically, because now it's always that battle of, am I enough for you?
Wow.
So what I made it within myself is that, you know, when I have a, you know, my lady and my wife or whatever, you know what I'm saying, is that I want people to see me loving on you in public. And not as a show, but no, because you're deserving of this. And I think what happened is that we connect with people without having an understanding of how they function. No matter where you go, white, black, rich or poor, every woman wants attention.
Yes.
Every woman wants to feel appreciated. And every woman wants to be accepted. And it's almost like this, and please don't take this and be offended by women, but most women have what I call the acting out syndrome, child syndrome, right?
Oh, yes.
So it's like listen to me on this.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Most women want to fall out in the floor, kick and scream, and come back and say, "Love me." And now, and it took me a while to get there. It took me a while to get there, but that's just how they operate and function. Because for them, the security in, I don't get it, Brother King, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's how they function. In their mind, I want to be able to fall out, kick and scream, and get up, and you're still going to love me for who I am and not walk out the door. And that's the security that every woman really longs for, because I saw it in my mother. So what I realized is that, okay, this is what my mother didn't get. And how do I not become my father? Because my father, great man, but Pops ain't showing no emotions.
Absolutely.
Like, Pops ain't letting you see him cry. He ain't. And so what I had to do is I got around other men who I saw love their wives. Like, I started watching men who would grab their wife's hand or their girl hand, smack on the butt, you know, kiss her, play with her in public.
See that. You gotta see that.
You gotta see it. And so when I saw masculine men doing this, I was like, oh, it's cool.
Yeah, we can do it.
And we can do it. And I think for us, especially as young black men, it's hard for us to exemplify certain behaviors of love because we don't see it. And then the models that we do see are very unhealthy, very dysfunctional, very deminimizing, and two, they're it's almost like we have this mindset like, nah, you know what I'm saying, like, niggas ain't finna see me hugging on my girl out here in public. But behind closed doors, you all on her. Because here's the thing, and I'll say this to some of the guys who are watching, that nothing moves a woman more so than you showing her who she is to you in public around other women.
Yeah. That's big.
Like, that's big because, you can give her some flowers at home,
but it ain't.
But it ain't the same as you give her some flowers.
She want to feel like that trophy, man. She want to feel like that brand new car. Like that's security right there. I think in a sense that's true security. And okay, my man really claims me. My man really loves me. He ain't really got nothing to hide out here. I feel like it gives them that type of that security and that mentality right there. And they're saying, okay, we can go somewhere with this. I'm this man's wife.
Right. I think to add to that, and to people who are watching, what it comes down to is that we're in a society right now that everybody has this whole savage mentality, right?
Oh, yeah.
But here's the whole thing.
Heartless.
But here's the thing. Everybody talk about they're heartless, they're savage.
Yeah.
But check this out. Everybody who's a savage really wants love.
Everybody.
That's the crazy part. It's an oxymoron.
They lack it in their homes or wherever they come from, and so now they crave and they've been yearning it for a long time. And so what happened
is that we're so overly connected and we're under commune, so nobody's never vulnerable.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something.
Too powerful.
You can't get real love, and I'm not talking about this mushy TV love. I'm talking about real love to where, listen, I love everything about you that you don't like about yourself.
Oh.
That's love. To love and everything about you that you don't like about yourself that says, hey, I know you insecure in that area. That's cool. I'm going to still love you. I know you're deficient in some areas, but I'm going to still rock with you. To get to that place, you got to be naked. But see, what we do with social media is everybody want to present this image that I got it together. I'm out here getting my bags. I'm out here securing the bag. I'm out here living my best life. And the reality of it is that most people are barely holding on.
And they ain't admitting their struggles, man.
And realizing that when you are vulnerable and you can show me who you are, that allows me to be who I am. Because guess what? We all flawed individuals.
Yes, sir.
I don't care how high, how low. I don't care if you a pastor of 5,000 people. I don't care if you pushing a mop at a school. We all have those places in us that we're afraid to share with people. Because here's the other side of social media. People these days will take your shortcomings, your downfalls, your issues, and your deficiencies, and people, like, we glamorize exploitations. Like, we glamorize, oh, I was with so-and-so, he ain't really who he say he is, or I was with old girl, she ain't really. It's like, where did we get off from that?
Yeah.
And realizing that, man, you could never build trust in no relationship if you can't protect the sacredness of the person that you're with. And so what happened is that all we do is just all everybody have now. No, you know what I'm saying? This, you know, not this. All we have now is just vibes. Yeah. Everybody's just vibing.
Yeah.
But nobody's really connecting and building, because to really connect means that when I connect my plug into that socket, that plug has to be open. If it's closed, I can't connect. So the only way that you connect, you got to open up.
Yes, sir.
Man, you got me.
Hey, Jay, what's up, man? King Jay.
I told y'all
King Jay Barnett is here, man.
This shirt.
Anointing.
This shirt is anointed, man.
Yes.
I wear this shirt. It's on.
Yes. Hey, so look, peep this. So, you said something about how, you know, people loving on your flaws, and that you're admitting all of those, and you have to love somebody even through all of their flaws.
Yeah, that's what Jesus do.
That's man, come on,
and
Jay. I was just about to say that. Jay, I was just about to say. I was like,
dude,
look,
that's what Jesus.
I was
is.
like, look, that's all Christ did. That's Jesus.
All he did.
That's Jesus to a T. Like,
it.
bro, do you understand this, man? Like, do you understand who God is and what Jesus did? When you pray and you say, God, I want to love like you. Do you truly want to love like him? Because if you truly want to love like him, I promise you,
that means
you're going to have to love
them.
Somebody's flaws. You're going to have to hear some heartbreak. You're going to have to go through so much just to, man, come on
because
now.
Here's the thing.
Come on, Jay.
To really love like Jesus, meaning that I got to love the ugliness of you. The ugliness. Because guess what? We all have some parts in us that are ugly. But guess what? You can't come to God until you ugly.
Yeah.
You know, you used to hear people say, well, when I get right, I'm going to come to Christ. You can't get right on your own.
You can't get right, bro. What is good to him?
But what God did is that to understand love, because we don't really love unconditionally.
Yeah.
We love with conditions.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We love with condition. I love you as long as I'm getting this bag.
Yes, sir.
I love you as long as you know what I'm saying, you dropping it, you bagging it up, and you know what I'm saying? You like I'm just keeping y'all, I'm just keeping it 100.
Be real, be real.
I'm you know, we love with conditions. But it amazes me how people scream God, you scream Jesus, and then when you see somebody ugly parts, you're quick to expose them. You're quick to talk about them. You're quick to, you know what I'm saying, to disconnect, and you're quick to run out and newsflash, this wrong with him, this wrong with her. Man, ain't nowhere you gonna go in this world and that's not something wrong with somebody.
Yeah.
We can't come to God, you know what I'm saying, from this place of saying that we're whole. We all have some broken areas. We all got baggage.
Yes.
We all have some things that we've done.
Yes.
But if you're going to truly love somebody, you're going to have to accept all of them. Now, you pick and choose what you're going to accept. Because what I tell my hey, everybody got bags. You just got to choose which bags you're going to take.
Yeah.
So to really understand, and what I like about Paul is says, and Paul says, every time that I wanted to do right, wrong was always present.
Yeah.
So in knowing that wrong is always present means that there's a propensity for me to always fail you. And what we do is when people fall short with us, we're quickly to sign them off. We're quickly to sentence them to death. We're quickly, instead of saying, if I truly have the heart of Christ, let me love this person from where they are.
Right.
Now I'm not saying you being connected to somebody who's mentally, verbally, or emotionally abusive. But what I'm saying is stop expecting people to be perfect.
Absolutely.
Stop expecting for people to get it right all the time. Give people the opportunity to respond. Like, what I don't like about this era is, like, if you wrong me, I'm going to text you before I call you.
That don't make no sense.
And it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But if you really understand the love of Christ, Paul always addressed the issue.
Right.
He never came to condemn you, just address the issue. Meaning that...
In my head, man, I'm thinking the same thing.
Man, just address the issue, meaning that just because you wrong me, or just because you are not, where I am in this level, doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Just mean that we need to find out how we can fix this issue.
Yeah.
But what we do is we find people with the issue, like, oh, this ain't right, that ain't right, and we pick apart everything.
Yeah.
And as we're picking apart everything, we forget to look in a mirror and pay attention to the parts that we haven't picked. And what we do is we dress them up. We make it up.
Yeah.
And we present our best selves. But here's the thing, even on your best day, you're not all that you need to be unless God is involved.
Absolutely, man. Hey, you know what? Hey, King Jay right here, man.
Tell your shirt is anointed, man.
Staying anointed, man. We went to a whole different topic, man. It's all good though. But Jesus said to a young lady in the Bible, he said, "Hey, who condemns you?" She said, "No one."
Yeah.
Said, well, neither do I. Go and sin no more.
Yeah.
Man, that's powerful right there. That's saying right there, like, dude. Like, and I think about that every time I fall short of God's glory, just like in Romans 3:23, it tells you that everybody sins and falls short. And man, I have to always remind myself, like, what would Jesus think in this situation, or what would Jesus say? We honestly don't know what Jesus would say, but we know the type of love that he exemplifies for us. And so he's saying, who condemns you?
Yeah.
No one. Well, neither do I. Now go and sin no more. And another thing I wanted to add on to that, I just talked about this in the panel discussion I came from, and I used a verse from Galatians 1:10. It says, am I now trying to please man, or am I trying to please God? For if I'm still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. You have to understand at those times, even when you flawed and when you're going through all of these things, you can't please everybody.
Right. No,
you're not
can't.
going to be able to please everybody.
No.
You're going to have to go through something, and you're going to be like, you know what? As long as my Heavenly Father accepts me for who I am, and what I'm doing, and I know that I'm doing things that are right in the eyes of God, I'm solid on this end. And this relationship might not be the best for me, but I'm going to still love you. And I might have to love you from a distance, but hey.
Right, exactly.
It is what it is, man. So
and that's I'm glad you said that. And I'll tell anybody, if you want to please everybody, open up an ice cream shop. Everybody like ice cream.
Oh yeah.
Everybody like ice cream.
Yeah.
So if you want to please everybody, there's a young lady asks, can we talk about
the flavor?
She asks, can we mention what men want? I'll say this, from being in the sports arena, from being in different circles that I'm in, whether these are men that are in high places or men in low places, I think what a lot of men want is that a lot of men really just want to be protected in their emotional state.
Yeah.
And let's just be honest, ladies. Many of you are, I'll say this before I lead into that. Science shows and studies, this was actually a Harvard study, that women are 11 years ahead of men mentally. So to understand that is to understand that the average man that you're dealing with is probably going to be about 5 to 7 years behind in the mental capacity in which an average woman, function in. So that and meaning that ratio to finding a man on your level emotionally and mentally is very challenging. So and understanding that is that you understand how to interact with certain types of men, and realizing that every man, is trying to find who he is. And when men don't have a sense of purpose, they don't have a sense of identity, and if they're trying to find out who they are through what they do, because men identify themselves by what they do. And so if a man is not having a career that he has, if he's not living a life that he wants to live, it's very difficult for him to check in emotionally.
Right.
And that's a challenge for most women, because a woman doesn't necessarily have to be at a state in her life where she checks in emotionally. Most men are not ready to settle down until they feel like, well, I got the car, I got the house, I got the job, I got the career.
Yeah.
Women don't work like that.
Nah,
so understanding how you operate, ladies, and understand how a man operate would allow you to alter how you interact with them, to where if a man doesn't really speak in the tone of not coming as a savior, but if he doesn't speak from the language or purpose of his life, where he's going, it's going to be difficult for him to articulate to you where the both of you are going together. So when you see that or hear that, I think you have to make, as I say, you have to make a big girl decision, because it's going to be very challenging to connect with a man who doesn't understand who he is. So it'll be very difficult for him to be clear about what he wants. Because a man who's clear about who God has called him to be, a man who is clear about who he is in the earth and in the realm, it would allow him to articulate what he wants from you. Because the moment that you can articulate what you want, you'll understand, you'll be able to be clear about him on what you need. Because it has to work together.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Man. So real quick, man, we
Are y'all enjoying this?
King Jay, man, we gonna have to do a part 2 of this.
Part 2?
We gonna have to do a part 2, man. My memory card just went full, dog. Like,
oh man,
crazy enough, man. I'm kind of mad, but it's all good. So look, real quick, man, I want to do a 30-second spill. Whatever you want to tell the people, however you want to tell them, man. Just give them something that, to leave with them, man.
Okay. So I have 30 seconds to give you guys something. My man says, I'll tell you this. In the area that we live in, right? In the area that we live in, understand 3 ways of communicating so you can understand how to operate with people. So there are some people that you need to talk to over the fence. And there are some people that you would talk to in your yard. And there's those people that you would allow in the porch. Meaning that once you understand who God has called you to be, where God has taken you, you understand how to interact and how to connect with people. Because what you'll realize is that when people get into your yard, you are allowing them to see different levels and different elements and phases and layers of you. And you have to be able to trust that if you let someone into your yard, which is your heart place, you're giving someone access to who you are. And then understand and how to differentiate who you talk to over the fence. Because some people shouldn't get into your yard. And because once people get into your yard, you 9 times out of 10, they get on your porch. Even if they just on the porch, they still can see in the windows. And if people get onto the porch, and then you be very cautious about who you let into your house. And when I talk about the house, I talk about not only your heart, but your soul and your spirit. Be cautious of that, because we have a lot of imposters that they'll talk to you over the fence, say what you like to hear, get in the yard, say what you need for the moment, but once they get in the house, you realize is that they've been faking this whole time. Yeah. And that's it.
Hey, man, King Jay Barnett came through.
Thank y'all for
so
listening, man.
Some love, man. Man, what I got to leave with y'all, let me see. All I'm gonna say is part 2.
Yeah, part 2.
Part 2, man.
Are y'all up for a part 2?
Yeah, man. It's part 2 with it, man. So hey, look, we gonna do it. Hey, man, this is Cam Green. This is Cam's Green Light. Say no more, say less. King Jay Barnett, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, young King.
Yes, sir.
Blessings to you, man.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
proud of the work that you're doing, man. And awesome job for you just stepping out and just to represent your generation, man. And so just to be a trailblazer, man. And what I see you as being someone who's going where there is no trail, and you're leaving a path. And we need more guys like you, man. So blessings to you, King. Thank you for having me on, man.
Hey, man, if y'all like what y'all see, man, definitely subscribe to the channel on YouTube. It will be posted in about a day. So look, just check it out, man. It's on YouTube. Cam Green, Kam. Green like the color, SNM, which stands for Say No More, on Instagram and Twitter. YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel. It's Say No More by Cam Green. Hey, we out.